You are listening to The Diary of a Wannabe Writer, presented by Richard A. Boxshall, in which I chronicle my life and attempts to become a professional writer by, doing some writing daily, hopefully. Hello and welcome to The Diary of a Wannabe Writer. It's Thursday the 23rd of May 2024, and of course the big thing that everyone's talking about is the fact that yesterday our Prime Minister announced that there will be a general election on the 4th of July. Now, this podcast is not about politics, but this is quite huge. The current government could have held on as long as, I think, January next year. Somebody worked out was the longest they could wait until holding an election. And I think the perception is that they've got absolutely no chance of winning. So I think a lot of people are making an assumption that, on the 5th of July, Sir Keir Starmer will be moving into 10 Downing Street as Prime Minister. Now, I'm not going to make comments about what I think about either of the parties at this stage. I'm sure I've let slip my political affiliations accidentally in the past, but this is going to be a fascinating election for several reasons. One of my strongest memories from when I was younger was I like general elections. I like watching them, and in 1997, so I would have been 25 actually, so I wasn't that young, there was the general election which swept New Labour and Tony Blair into power. But one of the fascinating things about it was how many giant killings there were, how many huge names were, just lost their seats. I always remember watching Michael Portillo, like him or loathe him, an absolutely massive figure in the government at the time, suddenly finding that he didn't have a job, relatively unexpectedly. And I think whilst it's fairly obvious that the Conservatives are probably not going to win this one, what I don't think any of us are quite sure is what the scale of the defeat is going to be. Now, I don't have my rosters for that week yet, but it's just after I've gone back to work, so there's a very good chance I will be working on the night of the general election, which means I won't be able to stay up and watch the results come in, which is one of my favourite things, which means I might miss some of these giant killings, these slayings that are almost certainly going to happen. I've no idea who's going to retain or lose their seat, but so many people have stepped down and said they're not fighting the next general election. So my own MP is he the Minister for Northern Ireland? Chris Heaton-Harris, who's got a quite safe majority here at the moment, is stepping down at the next election. Now, my assumption is because he thinks there's a chance that he is going to lose. I don't know if that is his reason. I haven't read his statement. But that's absolutely fascinating. But it's not only, the scale of the decimation of the Conservative Party that's going to make this really interesting. North of the border, the Scottish National Party seemed to have imploded. So you had a long time of relatively stable leadership under Alex Salmond and then Nicola Sturgeon, and then they made the mistake of not naming their next leader after a fish, and it's all gone hideously wrong for them. And I know it's awful, but I can't remember the name of the guy that took over from Nicola Sturgeon, but he's now gone, and I'll be absolutely fascinated to see what happens north of the border, because there's a very good chance that the Scottish National Party vote is going to implode as well, which means you're going to have chaos everywhere. And what I can't work out is who will benefit from that. I suspect it won't be the Conservative Party. Traditionally up in Scotland, the big two for a long time were were Labour and the Liberal Democrats. Like the seat next to where my family live up there used to be Charles Kennedy, who was the leader of the Liberals at one point. So it's going to be fascinating, and I really, really hope that I'm not working on the night of the 4th, because I would absolutely love to stay up and watch these results come in. I think it's going to truly be a game changer. I really do. Now, obviously, because I don't know if I'm working on the day of the election, I now have registered and have for the last 10 years registered for postal votes. So I will have my say. But I haven't actually been into a polling station for nearly 10 years, just the nature of the job I do. As airline crew, you never know where you're going to be. And in fact, I haven't had my roster published for the election yet, although I know I'm working on the 1st of July. Chances are I'll probably have the 2nd, maybe 3rd off, or maybe just the 2nd. So I'll probably working the 3rd and 4th. But who knows? I get my rosters published. Where are we now? Early next month for July. So yes, it's going to be really interesting. I know that hasn't got a lot to do with writing, but I suppose it slightly ties in, because at the moment I'm writing, or I'm editing Empress of the Trees, and one of the things that happens in Empress of the Trees, as a result of the government doing a lot of exceedingly unpopular policies, green policies, as forced on them by the trees, there is an emergency, a general election called, and a right-wing fringe nutjob party win it. Okay, that's very unlikely to happen on this occasion, but I probably will use some of the things that happen on election night as inspiration for what happens in my story, because in my story the current government with a decent majority is going to be absolutely decimated by the electorate, which is very likely to be what happens on the 4th of June. I can't wait. It's going to be really interesting. So today was a bit of an experiment. I have a new iPhone, and this is the first podcast I have recorded on my iPhone. So I hope the recording quality is all right. Thank you for listening. And when I come back, I should be talking to you from Vancouver in Canada. Thanks for listening. Take care. Bye-bye. You have been listening to The Diary of a Wannabe Writer, presented by Richard A. Boxall. Thank you for tuning in to my random ramblings, and if you'd like to know more about me or my projects, visit my link tree at linktr.ee/Richard Wright, capital R, capital W. Thank you for listening.